right, so very cool. I want to share with you. My guest today is Amy Pease. She coaches individuals to recognize manipulation, mental abuse, and toxicity. She's all about reclaiming your self-worth and transforming your pain into a driven, passionate, and purposeful life. And that really speaks to me deeply. So I'm really grateful for this conversation today. Amy draws from personal journey of defying a controlling and manipulative family. I'm going to be asking her more about that. She's going to teach us how to recognize the signs of manipulation and mental abuse and how to overcome our abusers, take action, and free ourselves. And we're going to talk a bit more about that in just a second. Welcome to the Shadow Dance Edge, Amy. Yay!
Yay, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're so cool. I'll make my screen a little bigger so I can see you nice and large. Awesome. Very cool. You know that we titled this from warrior, from wounded to warrior. And to me, when I think back of the warrior archetype in my own personal experience, when I realized that I did not have to accept the status quo in my life, I really invoked that inner power of the warrior to just take a look at my life and go, you know what? I'm in charge. I actually can make different decisions. I can stand in my power and choose what direction I want to go. I don't have to accept what the world is telling me. And I noticed that the world likes to tell you where to go. Everything from like the doctors in your world saying you need to do this, this, and this. And I, in the past, was on this autopilot where I didn't question the world. I didn't question my teachers in school when they said everybody needs to grow up, find a vocation, and make money. That was like, I hear this everywhere. And even after I graduated and got to become an entrepreneur and I took on coaches, coaches would tell you everything is about the metrics. How many people do you have on a list? How are you making your next dollar? And I, for a little while, very little while, Amy, I wouldn't question it. I'd be like, okay, that's the way it is to be an entrepreneur in the world. And so I wouldn't question it until there was one time when I'm like, you know what? I'm really good at anything I do. So why am I not choosing differently? Why am I not choosing things that are making me feel supremely happy and supremely content in my life? And I think that when I think of warrior, I'm thinking of that idea of stopping, reconfiguring, like taking stock of who I am, how I'm being in my life, and the decisions I'm making, and then deciding, do I want to make different decisions? So I want to ask you, what is a warrior to you in your world?
Well, thank you. So, being a warrior to me, it it it's that ability to rise up, make your own decisions, take action in spite of being terrified of what you think is going to happen in the future. You've got two ways that it's going to go. It's going to go perfectly the way that it should go, or, all this other stuff could be happening. And that anxiety really is kind of like a shadow enemy standing in front of you, when you're trying to find the strength to move forward and to just do the things that you want to do and make the decisions that you want to make. You do have to fight that anxiety that you're going to have of, I don't know what's going to happen. And that was one of the things that always held me back for so long is my inability to trust myself that I'm smart enough and that I'm going to make the right decisions to do the things that I want to do to be where I want to be in the future. And so we tend to do that to ourselves, and so we end up staying where we're at. And so being that warrior is being able to say, despite all of that thinking, I'm going to go ahead and go for it, and whatever happens happens. And one of the things I tell a lot of my clients, especially when they're ruminating on guilt of making bad decisions, is, you do the best that you can, make the best decisions you can with the tools, the resources, and the information that you had available in the moment. And so as long as you continue to tell yourself that, you give yourself the courage to face these unknown fears. And that's what being a warrior really is to me, being able to face these fears in spite of, the unknown.
Yeah. And I've heard of like people with PhDs and like on top of it, they're A student, they're excelling in everything, but they don't have enough like self-trust to know if they just doubt themselves, they question themselves every which way, and it just creates this type of cloudiness, this confusion, this sense of stuckness, and they're not even aware yet that they can make a different decision.
Right.
How, and they don't even know how to reach out yet to ask for help because they think everything's their fault. So asking for help, they don't yet know that they can do that. And unfortunately, and from what I've learned from you and what I've learned about the world is telling them, maybe they're in a situation where the world is telling them they're wrong or they need to do something a certain way. And when they really truly feel like it's their fault, that that's it's like the worst place to be in. How do you wake these people up? How do you get them to realize that it may not be their fault?
Absolutely. So one thing that is kind of drilled into us as kids, I mean, at least for, our generation, Gen X, and, maybe a little older, but what was drilled into us was the fact that all of our self-worth, okay, came from the validation from other people in our lives. And
Oh,
so we were never taught how to look at ourselves, love ourselves, and trust ourselves that we're going to make these great decisions, and that no matter what happens, whether it was the right decision or whether it was the wrong decision, I'm still going to love who I am unconditionally, and just pick up and keep going from there. And that's the hardest thing that most people just really can't get over, is when they've made that bad decision, they don't trust they just don't have that love for themselves to trust that they're going to be able to pick themselves back up or clean up this mess that they've made or put themselves into, or they don't trust that they're going to have the strength to keep moving forward. So it's that lack of trust, lack of love, that we were never taught how to do that.
no, and it sounds to me like you're speaking from a place of been there, done that. You're speaking from a
Yeah.
place of you had to learn all this stuff. You didn't just read it in a book and come up with it and instantly love yourself the next day. And so I want to ask a little bit more, and I hope it's okay that we get a little personal in this.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about your journey and how it was that you realized that you didn't need to seek external validation, as you so put it. How did you learn to start really trusting yourself and learn that your love needed to come from freaking inside you, not from any external
Mhm.
sources?
So it took a long time. So I have not always been this way. In fact, I was very much the shy child, and I never talked to anybody. I never made, hardly any friends. Part of the reason for that was, my adopted mom and I moved around so much, so I went to too many different schools to kind of name, right? So we never stayed in one spot long enough to really make a connection with people. So I've always struggled with that piece. However, you know, it was the people that were in my family that were, the ones that I needed to impress. Growing up, my mom would not spank me or ground me. All she had to do whenever I did anything wrong was look at me and say, Amy, I am very disappointed in you. And it would destroy my world, right? And so what did that do? That instilled in me that, I can't trust myself. I don't love myself. People are disappointed in me if I don't do what they are telling me to do or be the person they're telling me to be. And so that made me go into myself even more, and made it really hard for me to show the world who I was. And so if you knew me back then and you know me now, completely different person.
Um,
But, you know, what did it for me though was when I ended up having to actually cut my adopted family off from my life because of the manipulation and the lies and the taking advantage of me. It had gotten so bad that in my beginning adult life, I was living with my brother, and my adopted mother. And they had me convinced that I was mentally ill.
No.
And I went to many mental health provider appointments seeking help. Now, granted, I was depressed because what was going on was I was supporting all of these people myself on $13 an hour. And as a new mother, a single mother. Okay. So I had a baby to take care of. I was supporting my mother and I was supporting my brother all financially. Right. And so I was in a very depressed state. But what they had me do was go ahead and go to a doctor. And they were telling me it's not all this, it's you, it's in your head. So we need to fix what's going on in your head so that essentially what they weren't saying was you could be strong enough to keep going for us. So, we don't have to do anything. But and I did, and I thought it was help out of compassion. This was my family. I grew up with them. They adopted me, right? I grew up with the idea that they chose me, so they would drill that into me, oh, I didn't just have you, I chose you, right? I got to pick you. And so in that sense, I grew up very thinking that I was very loved. And so when we're at the end of this year and these guys are telling me that I'm crazy, I'm depressed, bipolar even, okay, they convinced a doctor to go ahead and start putting me on all kinds of medications.
Mm.
And so I had tried just about every antidepressant under the sun. None of them worked. I had tried different medications for bipolar disorder. None of it worked. All of it, in fact, made the problems, excuse me, so much worse. The anxiety was getting really bad. So they threw anxiety medications in on top of that. And then one day, I'm on all this stuff. I'm still having all these problems. They're getting worse. I was having a really bad day at work. I had just gotten a phone call from my brother that they had turned the power off. And I had just gotten a phone call from the car dealership that they needed to repossess the car. And
Mm.
so I went into a panic kind of mode, had a major panic attack. So I took myself to, an urgent care. And, I didn't have any of my anxiety meds on me at the time. So I went to the urgent care and I'm like, I need help. I'm having these problems and I need to calm down. And so I had never seen this doctor before, but he said, okay, well, what's going on? I told him everything that was going on. He looked at my chart and he'd seen everything that they had put me on and everything that they had me try, okay, to fix this problem in my head. And he looked right at me and he said, Amy, I hate to be the first one to tell you this, and it's very sad that it's gone on this long, but from what you're telling me that's going on at home, and the fact that you've been trying all these drugs for so long and nothing's worked but made it better, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that your problem is not chemical in your brain, that your problem is situational. And these drugs are not gonna help because you don't have these problems. What's gonna help is evaluating your situation and making a change in your life. That is what's gonna help you. And so he even told me too, I think these people are taking advantage of you. You're being manipulated, you're being used, and that's about all I can give you without knowing a whole lot more. He said I give you some anxiety medicine, but that's not going to help. So he didn't prescribe it for me that day.
What did you think? I mean, he was spot on, obviously,
Yeah.
but did you believe him instantly? Did you question yourself? Did you question him? Like, how did you? What? That's so crazy.
Yeah.
What?
So excuse me. So yeah, it kind of was like I was in a different body kind of sense, or I was kind of floating up here when he was kind of telling me this stuff. Like, this is not my life. This is not happening to me right now. This can't be, what is going on. This is so soap opera script type stuff. This doesn't happen in real life. This is crazy. And so at first I kind of denied what he was telling me. And I didn't want to think that these people that I had trusted and grown up with my entire life, the people that chose me, would put me in this kind of a situation, And So I thought on it for about a month, and I made a doctor's appointment with my normal mental health provider. And I had him get on the phone with this doctor, and I had them talk for a little bit, and they kind of agreed, this mental health provider that I'd been seeing for these years now kind of agreed that he was kind of thinking that this situation was going on. Um, he was getting to that point because we had tried everything. And so he started to taper me down off of all of my medications, safely, as long as I went to therapy sessions and worked out what was going on, deal with everything from the past and come up with solutions to break free and get out. So I had that support behind me, and I had the doctor behind me at the time.
Mhm.
And so that was one thing I had in my corner. And so now I had to confront my family, though, because these people had full access to my finances. I had no access to my own money. And my brother and I had a business together, and I had to figure out a way to get him out of that business. I was making soap at the time. And we had a pretty good little thing going on. So I had to get him out and get that company to myself, and then I had to figure out something, a place to live. I had no money of my own. I had to figure out where I was going to go, and then I had my son. Now I'm looking at being a single mother or staying here. Those are my options. It's kind of like picking the less of two evils when you're looking at, your life choices. Do I stay with the manipulative side over here, or do I choose to be a single mother and, go for that route, And so I ultimately found groups that would help get me into an apartment. And I made that choice that I'm not going to live with these people anymore. I'm going to get my apartment. I'm going to be a single mother. And they helped me get in, paid the first and last month for me. Okay. And then it was up to me to come up with the next month. So I had no job at that point. And so I had to find a job. I did. And then from there, it wasn't easy, but here we are. And it still took me, after leaving, building my life back up from there, off of these medications, it still took me 15 years to get to kind of where I am today, to process all of that and figure out, okay, it all comes back to that self-love that I never ever had. I couldn't put up these boundaries with these people. I couldn't see these people in any other light because these people had always been my savior there to take care of me. And I never saw myself as somebody who could take care of themselves. And when I finally went out on my own and proving to myself, baby steps, that, what, I am okay. I'm smart enough. I'm resourceful enough. I can do this with no issues. I can do this. This isn't that bad. This is way better than what I was going through. And then just kind of building on top of that, little wins. Hey, I got a job. Cool. Little win. And it's all those little wins that builds that self-confidence. And then you start to, think about the past, and you think about patterns, and you think about your personality. And then you start to realize, that you love this and that about yourself. And you know what? How cool was it that I stood up to these people? And it just builds and builds in you as you start to process everything. And that is one of the things that I really try to help people with, is looking at that past, looking at, all of the pain and suffering or whatever that you went through, and getting you those little wins, recognizing what happened, pulling out the good from that. And hey, look at what I was able to do through all of that. Despite all of that, I still got a job. I still moved up. I still did this. I still got this promotion, even though all these other people told me I couldn't do that. And I believed that for so long. Yeah, those little baby steps, right? And that's
Yeah,
all it takes. That's
it
all
really
it
is.
takes.
And so what I heard was, if you didn't have somebody actually step in that could see the bigger picture
Yep.
from their interview with you, you wouldn't have even had the hint that it wasn't your fault. You weren't not right in the head. And then I'm so grateful that you actually had your other doctor, your regular that you saw all the time doctor talk to this other doctor that could see the bigger picture, get
Yep.
them on the same page, and then even in 15 years because you still had to do the little steps and see that everything was going to be okay. You just had to step into a little outside of your comfort zone. Unfortunately, comfort zone is such a misnomer because your comfort zone was to be with these people who kept creating this space of I love you, I chose you, all this stuff.
Yep.
And you had to really step outside of that into something that was way scarier, being the single mom, moving into place, not having a job, not really having that clarity of what was going to happen next.
Yep.
But you did it anyway. And so now it sounds like you have this mission to help people see that it's not their fault. And I think that first step is the hardest, don't
Yes.
you? I mean, you had somebody with a white coat syndrome, they know better, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. So now you're stepping into that. I get it. I've been there. I've done that. I can see the bigger picture.
Mhm.
Yet some people don't even know that it's not their fault. And so
Yep.
how do you wake them up? What do you have as a tool or something to help them find out that they really aren't at fault in their discomfort that they're in right now?
So one of the topics that we touch on in my course, that's going to be coming available here really soon, is the idea of self-accountability without self-blame. And
Mm.
so being able to look at, you know, the roles that maybe we did play in our own abuse, but not blaming ourselves for what happened. So like, yes, you had no kind of control over what these people were doing to you, but what you did have control over, that's the accountability piece, right? That is the I didn't set my boundaries up, or I didn't confront them when they did this. They took my money away from me and I have no way to, buy anything. This was all stuff that we allowed to happen.
We
Okay.
didn't know we couldn't allow it. We
But
didn't
we
have the
didn't
resources
know
to understand that we
exactly.
had choices.
Exactly. And
Huh.
so it's re-looking at all of those situations in the past and realizing this is the power that I had that I didn't know that I had. And why did I not have that power back then is because I didn't truly love myself or understand myself enough to know that within me, I do have that strength to put up that boundary, right? And so if we set boundaries without a sense of self-love or self-preservation, we're never going to uphold them. You can set as many boundaries as you want, right? Oh no, you're not going to take my debit card away from me. And you could tell them that all you want, but what's going to happen, do you really believe that? Do you really find it in yourself that you're going to be strong enough to say, no, you're not taking my debit card from me, over my dead body kind of stuff.
No, but when we're people pleasers, though,
Yeah.
we're living off of other people's approvals, other
Yep.
people's, you said validation earlier.
Yep.
And it's almost like our inner wounded child. They want to be loved, they want to be
Yes.
held, and so to do something against, like, "Oh, what if they're mad at me?" That's like the instant gut
Mhm.
reaction that we get because our inner wounded child is like, what if they get mad at me? What if they don't like me anymore? What if they kick me out on the street? So how do you help somebody combat those fears of being outcast, ostracized, unloved, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, right. So we look at, if, I mean, really, do you want somebody who is going to be putting you in that kind of situation, kind of in your life anyway? Why do you allow them to put that kind of energy and control over the way that you feel and you think? Um, so many times we get so hung up on what these other people are going to think when in reality, most of the time, they're probably not thinking that anyway, right? It's all in our head, right? At the moment. It may never materialize. And what does it matter anyway if this person doesn't like what I'm going to do or if they don't like what I'm going to say? Why does that really matter to us? We think it's because we care about this relationship with this particular person, right? And we think that by putting ourselves into, more of a submissive kind of state just to please this other person or stay kind of in their good graces, it's really counterintuitive to, having a healthy relationship to begin with. And
Right.
so when we go ahead and teach them that, it's not really what these people think about you, it's really more what you think about yourself and being comfortable with the decisions that you're going to make. And if these other people in your life don't like the decisions that you were going to make or you are making, maybe they're not the right people to be in your life anyway. If they're
Right.
going to continue to put you down, if they're going to continue to tell you you're not making the right decisions and whatnot, maybe in their mind, you're not. Okay. And they're perfect. It's perfectly fine for them to have those kind of thoughts and stuff. But what's not perfectly fine is for you to base all of your decisions based on what you think someone is thinking.
Right. Now, I can
And
imagine that that would work if they have a lot of supportive communities that they're involved in. But
Mhm,
however do you find that that people are so isolated in their situation as a means of control
mhm.
from those people that supposedly love them?
Yeah. So that was pretty much myself as well. I had nobody. And I had to get myself to the point that I'm going to go ahead and make this decision and go to this scary side. I have no idea what's going to happen, all by myself with nobody going with me, with no kind of support. The doctor's only going to be able to do so much, but he's not going to pay my bills. He's not going to, you know, make sure that I have childcare for my son, and he's not going to put food on the table. This is stuff that he's not going to be able to do. Yeah, he opened my eyes, but he's not going to help me moving forward. And so I had to just look within and find it within me and decide, what do I want? Do I want to continue living the way that I was living? you know, in the fear, in the, manipulation, in the depression, in the anxiety, and continue to go down that path, or do I just go ahead and take that step into this unknown? And yeah, I'm gonna be doing this by myself, but once I am out there, okay, that's when I start looking for my tribe of people, basically, and
Yeah.
looking for, all the resources and community uh, events, and you just throw yourself out there when you're away from that situation finally. And if you're still stuck in that situation thinking, oh god, I'm thinking about leaving but I have nobody to reach out to or talk to, you do have resources available. You just have to seek those out.
Just to share, if anybody just joining us right now, we're speaking with Amy Peace, and she's really sharing about how to really go from confusion to clarity, and going from that sense of woundedness into becoming the warrior that you are, owning your power, your choices, and showing us that there are more choices than you might think you have right now. And so it all starts with that first choice, though. That first choice is probably the hardest one, Amy, I can imagine, is to really decide to take action, do something different, step outside of your core, your comfort zone. What do you have for the listeners of this program that could help them really decide on taking that next step, as scary as it may be?
So I can attest from personal experience that taking that first step is the best thing that you can ever do. It's the best thing that I ever did. Looking back, I am so proud that I did that for myself. That I found the strength within me to say, F it, I'm going for it because I know what's down this road. I don't know what's down here, but I know what's down here. And I don't like what I see. And I know where that's going to go. I know where that's going to lead. And, perfectly honest, it was probably going to lead me to probably ending everything for myself. Right. And I knew that. But I had my son that I had to take care of too. And I did not want to leave him with those people to fend for himself that way. And so that put a lot into me too. into taking that first step is I've got to do this for him. But if you don't even have that, think about your future self in 15 years. Where are you going to be? And if you're sitting there thinking, well, who's going to care in 15 years about me or what I'm doing? And I can tell you right now from this journey that I've been on is that in 15 years, there's going to be somebody like maybe in your audience right now that needs you, your healed self, in the future. And so you may not see it right now, but you do have a purpose. Okay. And that's going to come from the healed version of yourself. And so that's where you have to take that first step. It's going to come, it's going to get better. It's going to be more difficult as you go for sure. The beginning, right? It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. But once you're through that and you've processed everything and you've got that confidence built in you, like, hey, I survived all that. And here I am. And what else? No, nobody can bring me down now. I mean, look what I survived, right? And so you get that courage, that feeling of strength.
Awesome. So if people want to get connected to you, where's a good place for them to do that?
Yep. So I am on Facebook. You can find my page, Passion from Pain, or you can follow me, Amy Pease, on Facebook as well.
Mhm.
I do have TikTok, that is Passion from Pain, and Instagram as well, which is Passion from Pain as well. And then YouTube, I've got a few videos, just started YouTube. I've got that one is Passion and Purpose from Pain.
Passion and Purpose from Pain on
Yep.
YouTube. That's
Yep.
awesome. So if you're already on YouTube, you should look out, type in Passion from Pain. Wait, Passion from Pain. Where's the purpose come in? Say it again.
Passion from Purpose and Pain.
Passion from Purpose and Pain. I love it because, I mean, you look at great people out there, world leaders, and they have something in them that they became passionate about because there was an injustice, because something wasn't working, and it has just fueled them to move forward and change the world so nobody has to experience that in their life. And that's exactly how I see you, Amy. This is going to sound wrong, but it's going to sound right. I am grateful for your shadow of self doubt. I am grateful for your experiences, as harried as they were, because it gave you a point of view and a path of purpose to lead and guide other people out of their own stuckness, out of their confusion, giving them that clarity, turning them from wounded into warriors. And I just really appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been awesome.